Welcome to the 1980s, a decade described in SI Harrogate's 75th anniversary booklet as the very colourful 1980s. The theme for these 10 years was very much focused on friendship, service and fun. The world was a rapidly changing place with many global events that a lot of us remember to this day. Some good and some bad. The rise of the yuppie in the Western world, the Falklands War, AIDS emerged as a deadly epidemic, and the 1987 financial crash became known as Black Monday. On a positive note, the Cold War ended, the Berlin Wall came tumbling down, and the internet was born. Whatever happened to that? Charity fundraising reached new heights with the 1985 Live Aid concert happening on both sides of the Atlantic. Who could ever forget the opening bars from Status Quo's rocking all over the world? There were new TV channels. Technology and satellite TV introduced us to many new and exciting things. MTV, blockbuster movies and new genres of music, all of which helped reshape our popular culture. And during the 1980s, women were starting to reshape the world by making cracks in that glass ceiling. Women were becoming world leaders and were making their voices heard. Vigdis Finn Bogadottir, a divorced single mum, became the world's first democratically elected female head of state as President of Iceland in 1980. Benazir Bhutto served as the 11th Prime Minister of Pakistan and was the first woman leader of a Muslim nation in modern history. And closer to home, Maggie Thatcher was Prime Minister for the whole decade. Whilst this demonstrated that women could get to the top of the UK government, she didn't make it easier for women to follow, as she only promoted one female during her whole 11 years in office. Childcare, women's positive action and equal rights were not addressed during this period. She certainly did not stand up for women and girls. But in contrast, Princess Diana was known for her charm, charisma, and for using her celebrity status to aid charitable causes. She was president of or patron of over 100 charities, including AIDS awareness and prevention, battling poverty and homelessness, various cancer trusts, and in the early 80s opens up the stigma surrounding mental illness. Who would have realised that it was only in 1980 that women were allowed to apply for credit in their own name? And in 1982, bars and pubs were no longer allowed to refuse to serve women. Just think how many establishments would have gone to the wall if this hadn't happened, especially when the Soroptimists were in town. And not that long ago, in 1985, the Equal Pay Amendment Act meant that women could finally be paid the same as men for working of equal value. And a year later, women were allowed to work night shifts in factories. Weren't we doing that in the 1940s during the war? So, what about what was happening locally? Harrogate, the town, and Harrogate International Centre, commonly known as HIC, featured on the world stage twice in the early 80s. After Bucks Fizz brought the trophy home in 1981, the Eurovision Song Contest 1982 was the first event held in the brand new conference centre. Then, again, in 1984, the 50th Soroptimist Federation Convention was held in Harrogate, with over 2,000 delegates from all over the world attending. SI Harrogate members were fully involved in the preparation and helping out. I was at the HIC during this period, not as a Soroptimist, but in my early 20s, trying to break through the double glazing, bulletproof glass ceiling of local government. Meanwhile, SI Harrogate members, when not stewarding at convention, were busy following their decade's theme of friendship, fun and service. Friendship played a major part in the Golden Jubilee 50th anniversary celebrations in 1983, under the presidency of Jill Smith. A friendship weekend was held over the 9th and 10th of July. 173 people attended the formal luncheon at the Crown Hotel. Strong ties were made with Arlen, Lucian and Diekirch, to name but a few. Attending conference is one way of cementing friendships, either at a club level or on a personal level. In 1983, members began our link with Willimantic USA whilst at Istanbul International Convention. Our current member, Janet Hutton, remembers fondly her time when president, attending the International Convention in Melbourne, and spent memorable and fun times strengthening our friendship links with Sydney, Brisbane and Benalla. Service to our community, or as it's commonly known now, Programme Action, is at the heart of what we do. Fundraising whilst having fun is key. During the 1980s, the club was involved in many projects, providing a washing up rota at Heath Lodge Residential Care Home and Springwater School so staff could have a night off. Simple things. The club supported a Leeds-based project run by Save the Children Fund. Asha, meaning hope in Bangladeshi. It supported Bangladeshi women to improve their skills and gain basic information to cope with their various problems. A 15-year project was started in 1988 to sponsor children's education at the Dwang Prateep Foundation in Bangkok. And the club also sponsored the education of children in Pakistan for several years. A humongous £1,000 raised, which is over £4,000 in today's money, for the building of Martin's House, a home for terminally sick children. A cheque was presented by our current member and the 1984 president, Dorothy Taylor, and it was officially opened in 1987 by the Duchess of Kent. The 1980 Soroptimists enjoyed numerous entertaining and interesting social events too, with many activities, surprise, surprise, involving food and drink. We had a cruise on the Ouse in York, a candlelit evening supper, wine and savoury evenings, inter-club barbecue, a gourmet evening, a fish and chip supper, and there were non-eating events too. Brass band concert, Bradford Carol service, quiz evenings, trips to the races, Christmas kaleidoscope and having a stall at the Ripley show. A truly spirited and colourful decade. Fun, friendship and helping women and girls are key elements of being a Soroptimist, but this had to end whenever a club member retired from work. I know. Believe it or not, prior to 1980, Soroptimists were no longer able to attend meetings or take part in any votes once they'd stopped working. So, forward-thinking Nancy Harris came up with the idea of the coffee club. This group of retired members, they met on the first Tuesday of every month. It enabled its members to continue the good works of Soroptimism, along with having lots of fun, friendship, and support for each other and the club. What an ingenious membership retention scheme created for the decade, and thankfully led the way to changes in membership rules. So, as we dim the lights on the 1980s, the bright, day-glow, multicoloured decade was full of highs and lows, but most definitely a time when women began to take centre stage in politics, theatre, TV, the music industry. It was a time when sisters were not just doing it for themselves, but for the benefits of all, especially women and girls. The Soroptimist blend of fundraising and action together, with the focus on fun and friendship, set the scene for the organisation we see today. I'm lighting this candle in friendship, remembering all our 1980s Soroptimist sisters.